Hey everyone, it's T-Lore, and today I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the basics of Pirates of the Spanish Main and all of its expansions. I'm showing off mostly Pirates of the Revolution cards, but they all play pretty much the same way, and I'm going to go over some of the basic rules and things to look for on a card. So I have here most of the different cards that you'll see. There's a few unique cards that show up in other sets, but I'll cover those later. So I have a ship, and this is called the deck plate with all the information on it. I have a named crew that has its ability, points, and everything like that. And then I have a generic crew, which you can see has these numbers here, which are treasure coins that you can see on the back. So the whole point of the game is to use your ships and crew to either have the most treasure or to sink everybody else's ships, or at least get them to the point where they can't take any more actions. So on your turn, you can give each of your ships an action, and there's 4 actions to choose from. So there's moving, shooting, exploring, and repairing. So the exploring and repairing actions are a lot less complicated than the moving and shooting actions. So we'll start by looking at this card here, and then we'll get into a little bit of what that means for your different actions. So at the beginning of the game, you're going to have a point value that everybody builds their fleet to. So in this case, this ship is worth 15 points. So if you were playing a 40-point game, this would contribute to your point value. You'll also notice that crew have these point values on them as well. So 15 points. The next thing is the faction flag. Some people like to make sure that all their ships and crew are of the same faction. You don't have to do that, but you do need to make sure that your crew on your ship are the same faction. So see how this is a pirate flag, and this is a pirate ship. If you have crew that are a different faction on your ship, then you can't use their abilities. They're just hanging out. You have your ship name, which is just for flavor, and then you'll occasionally see this symbol here, which is called the link symbol, and I'll get to that much later. So your ship statistics are your masts, which is essentially your hit points, how much hit points it has before it can be sunk. Your cargo, that's how much crew and treasure it can carry. Your speed, which is how fast it can move if given a move action. And then your cannon ranks. And so this is how each of your cannons has this rank. For the color is the range, and the number is how accurate it is. So a lower number means a better cannon. And then you'll notice that there's this red L and white S here. So what that refers to is actually on the back of the card. There's this red line here and this white line here. That is how you measure in the game, whether your shooting range or your movement range. So you have S is white and is the short side of the card here, and red is L and is the long side of the card here. So a lot of people end up with some other way to measure besides the back of the card, because these cards tend to be a little bit fragile, especially some of the busier cards. So I use these little magnetic sticks here that you can stick together and measure out your movement as well as your cannon range. So those are one thing. I've seen people use cardboard or dowels or any number of things to do that with. So really, once you know the measurement ranges, short and long, that really is very helpful for moving and shooting actions especially. Now, how does this work? We're going to take a ship like this, and you can actually punch it out, and all the pieces come out of the ship. And when you open a pack, you'll get all the pieces for the ship, unless it's like a misprint or something like that. But those are pretty rare, all things considered. So you get a bunch of pieces like this, and you take them and are able to put them together. And there's instructions on how to build each different type of ship and what they look like. So while I'm putting this together, I'm not going to waste a lot of time here, but I did want to at least show you that that's how the game works, is that you're taking these pieces, punching them out, and putting them together. So we'll put all these pieces together, and it makes a physical ship, and this ship moves around in the play area as the game itself. And I've built a lot of these ships, so some of them are a lot faster than others, so I specifically chose this one because it goes together pretty quickly. These cards you can definitely keep to be able to put the ship back in the card later, but for right now we'll just tuck them underneath. So you can see that this has 4 masts, so you have 4 individual sails on the ship. You have 4 cargo, which is not really represented on the ship model itself. And then your speed is that S plus L. So let's go ahead and talk about moving. That's pretty much the most important action in the game. So this has an S and an L for movement on its turn. So on your turn, you measure from the bow of the ship where it touches the play area. So you can see how it curves down right here. So you can measure from right here. You can go in whichever order you want to, S plus L, L plus S, and you don't even have to move the full movement, but this is as far as you can move. And you can move around obstacles, but you can't really do a full 180, so I couldn't do anything completely crazy about like moving like this. Anyway, so I'll go ahead and just say that my ship is here, and I'm going to move. So I'm right here. I can measure from that location and come out over here. Okay, so that's a move action, is being able to take your measurements, long and short, whatever's on your card, and move that distance. Now, at this point, I'll mention it, and I'll come back to it later when we talk more about crew. There's a crew called Helmsman that gives you plus S to your movement, and that's a very, very powerful ability to be able to get that much extra movement out of your ship. That's one of the essential crew that's in the game. All right, so that's the basics of a move action. Now, I will say there's some other nuances to that we'll cover probably in another episode. But a shoot action is something completely different. So if I have a shoot action, then that allows me to shoot at another ship. So let's say I have this Cursed Blade ship here, and I've already moved my ship into position, let's say somewhere around here. So you'll notice on each of the masts, they have a number and a color. So that means you're measuring from each of these masts to see what's in range. So red ones are long range, so I can definitely hit that. I can definitely hit that. I try not to move the ships. They're very light, so it's kind of easy to do. I can definitely hit with that one. And then the back one is white, so that means it's short range. And I know the camera perspective looks like it's really close, but let me see if I can get it closer to the table here. You can see that it's actually falls pretty short of being able to hit the other ship. So you measure from the mast, see if you can hit the other ship, and you can't. So I now have these 3 that I can roll for. So I'm going to roll for the first one. I get a 6, so that's a hit. I roll for the next one, a 5, so that's a hit, and I'm going to roll for this one and get a 2. So that would be a miss. You have to roll higher than the number that is on the mast in order to hit. So in this case, I would eliminate 2 masts from this ship. When you lose a mast, you also lose the cannon associated with it. So traditionally, the game is played where you remove the masts as you take damage. Now, these ships are kind of fragile sometimes, so there's a lot of other ways to indicate how you take damage, but this would be the traditional way to take damage. And then this ship, were it given an action on its turn, could fire back, and it's within range for that short range cannon, and it's got a 3. So I'll go ahead and roll a 4 for that, and now the Golden Medusa takes damage and play continues. So that's how a shoot action works. I will say another essential crew that you'll hear a lot about is a captain. What a captain allows you to do is give a ship a move action and a shoot action. So you'll be able to move first and then shoot, and that is essential to being able to play the game when you're doing combat. So I'll go over the other 2 actions briefly. So when you move and your ship contacts an island like this with the front, that is called docking. So once you're docked at an island, you're able to explore it, as well as you can also make similar contact with another ship and explore it as well. But for right now, we'll just cover islands. When you're docked at an island, you may give an explore action. So when you do, you can mark the island as explored, and you can also look at all the treasure on the island. So there will be randomized treasure pieces that are on the island. You can look at them, and then they have values on the back that's actually how much points they're worth. Anywhere from 1 to, you'll see 7. And then there's also unique treasures which have abilities that gets to be pretty specialized as well that we won't really cover here. So exploring allows you to pick up treasure. You look at the treasures on the island, and then you can carry up to your cargo capacity, which is 4 in this case, in treasure. Now, also crew take up that cargo capacity. So if I had these 2 crew on the ship, I would only be able to carry an additional 2 cargo. Now's a good time to go ahead and mention that link. So when you see that link symbol, you'll want to check the back really quickly and see what it's linked to. This one happens to be linked to Lady Baptiste. And even if Lady Baptiste is not linked back, it doesn't really matter. You can say Lady Baptiste is linked. That gives you an additional cargo space. So Lady Baptiste still takes up a cargo space, but now you get an additional one. So I have a total of 5 cargo, and 2 of them are taken up with crew. So that means I have 3 left over to be able to carry treasures. So you put your treasures on your ship, they're on here, and you can take them back to your home island, which is where you start the game, and drop them off to actually accrue the points towards victory. So that's just basically covering the 4 different actions in the game. You use these on each of your ships every turn, and use those to try and either sink everyone's ships or to get treasure home. So I will go into greater detail. You'll notice I didn't cover anything about this text box down here. And there's also lots and lots of nuances with different crew that you can get. So this is really just the basic actions. There's a lot to cover yet with abilities, as well as crew and how those are added to ships. I will say one last note is if you look at rarity, this has no bearance on the actual play piece. This is just how often you would pull these from packs, and it's based entirely on the form of the ship. So all ships that look very similar to this will be this rarity. So there's a bunch of different rarities in the game. There is common, which is this red corner. There is uncommon, which is the silver corner. And then there is rare. So a common is about 50% versus a rare is about 1 in 6, which is about 17%. And then super rare, which is somewhere in the 1 in 40 range. So it's going to be very uncommon to see one of these. And a super rare ship is not necessarily better than a rare or a common. It's just how often the ship shows up. And then those are ones that you can get from packs, but you can also get these limited edition or special edition ships from other locations. So like from a tournament promo, or specific boxes where they come pre-built and stuff like that. So this kind of like copper or green color, those are special edition, promo, limited edition. They're kind of used a little bit interchangeably, and they have bunches of different sources that you can get them from. And then I also wanted to point out that some of these tokens are things that I've made that you can use in the game. There's an allowance in the rules for you to be able to use different ways of indicating damage or keeping track of islands, that sort of thing. As long as they don't really interfere with the gameplay itself, they're allowed. Even measure sticks are allowed, whatever you use to measure with, as long as it's accurate to the card. So as long as you can take it up to the back of the card and say, yes, this is the same length as the card itself, then that's also acceptable. So I hope that was a brief intro to how to play Pirates, and I'll cover a little bit more next time.